Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into the absolutely incredible story of how a city once known all over the world as Bombay became the modern megacity of Mumbai. So let's just start with the big question, right? How in the world do you take a bunch of swampy, disconnected islands and transform them into a global financial powerhouse? Well, the story is probably not what you're expecting.
Because this whole thing, the very foundation of this massive city, doesn't kick off with some epic battle or a grand strategic plan. Nope. It all starts with a marriage treaty. This future metropolis was literally given away as a wedding present.
Now, to even get your head around how a piece of land like this could become a wedding gift, you've got to go way back and understand what it actually was.
See, long before there was a city, this wasn't one solid landmass at all. It was 7 completely separate islands. It was home to indigenous fishing communities like the Colis and Agris, and their world was all about fishing villages and marshes and mudflats, a total world away from the concrete jungle we see today.
For centuries, these islands were passed around between different empires. You had the Mauryans under King Ashoka, then a whole series of indigenous dynasties, and eventually the Delhi and Gujarat sultanates took over. Each one left a mark, sure, but the basic geography, those 7 islands, that didn't change.
And then the European powers show up looking for a foothold in India. This is where the whole story takes a sharp turn, and it's all because of a royal wedding.
So in 1508, a Portuguese explorer named Francisco de Almeida sails into the harbor, and he is just blown away by its potential. He calls it Bombay, which means the good bay. And what's so wild is that this simple observation, this name he gave it, is what eventually evolved into its colonial name, Bombay.
The Portuguese took control in 1534, but their plans were pretty modest, A little trade in spices and coconuts, spreading Catholicism. The British, on the other hand, they saw something completely different. They envisioned a strategic powerhouse, a military and commercial hub that could dominate the entire western coast of India.
And this is how they got it, not with a fight, but with a wedding. In 1661, as part of a political alliance, the Portuguese just handed over the 7 islands to England's King Charles II. It was part of the dowry for his new bride, Catherine of Braganza. Just think about that, a future megacity traded away for a political alliance.
And if you think that's incredible, get this. The king himself didn't even want to deal with the islands. So in 1668, he leased the entire archipelago to the super-ambitious British East India Company for a measly £10 a year. That's right, £10.
So, for the ridiculous price of £10 a year, the East India Company had this territory with just immense potential. And boy, did they have a plan to unlock it. Okay, step 1 was to make the islands a place people actually wanted to live. The company pumped money into security, built hospitals, and promoted trade like crazy. And the result? The population just exploded. It went up 6 times over in just 14 years, from 10,000 to 60,000 people, as everyone flocked to this new center of opportunity.
But the biggest problem was still the geography itself. Trying to run a city across 7 separate islands was a nightmare. So Governor William Hornby launched one of the most ambitious engineering projects of the era, the Hornby Vallard. For decades, they built causeways and literally filled in the sea between the islands with rubble until they had forged one single, solid piece of land.
With the islands now physically fused together, Bombay was ready to step onto the world stage. It was on its way to becoming a crown jewel of the British Empire.
A huge political shift happened after the Indian Rebellion of 1857. The British Crown basically said, okay, the company's time is up, and they took direct control of India. This move cemented Bombay's status. It wasn't just some corporate town anymore, it was a vital city of the British Raj.
This kicked off an era of really grand development. In 1853, India's very first passenger train journey started right here in Bombay. And later, you see these incredible monuments, like the Gateway of India being built. They weren't just infrastructure, they were massive symbols of imperial power.
The whole skyline of the city was being transformed with this magnificent Gothic architecture. You can still see it today in structures like the Victoria Terminus and the Bombay High Court. They're this incredible, enduring legacy of that period of intense city building under British rule.
But the story doesn't end with the British, not by a long shot. The final, and maybe the most meaningful transformation was still to come. After India gained its independence in 1947, the city became a center for new political movements.
After a series of protests fighting for a state for Marathi speakers, Bombay state was divided, and in 1960, Bombay became the capital of the new state of Maharashtra. Then, in 1995, came the final, symbolic step. The city shed its colonial name and was officially renamed Mumbai, a name that's deeply rooted in its local Marathi heritage.
And that shift really cemented the city's modern identity. It wasn't just a port anymore, or an imperial capital. Mumbai had become known as the City of Dreams, a total magnet for ambition and opportunity for people from every single corner of India.
So, from a dowry and a royal wedding to a bustling financial capital, the city has been in this constant state of transformation. It leaves you with a really fascinating question to think about. What does the future hold for a city that was quite literally built from the sea?